Hi, I'm Paul Hawkins. I'm a principal in the Office of the CISO in AWS Security. Today I'm going to talk about AWS Security and how the builder culture overlaps with that as we build and ship and operate services that our customers use. I like to start off by saying, what is the job of security? And what I mean by that is, what is the job of people with security in their job title? How do we think about our role in the wider organization? A quote that I really like that helps me frame this thought is from our CISO, CJ Moses. Service teams own the security of their service, and AWS security owns the security of AWS. So what does this mean? Our service teams own the things they build. They're responsible for their roadmap, they're responsible for the decisions they make, and then AWS security is responsible for building that overall organizational machine that helps them make good decisions at scale. We identify where automation is going to help people, where we want to drive consistency, and how we empower those service teams to make good decisions about the things that they build for our customers. There are two key things about how AWS works and how organizationally AWS functions. The first thing is that we run on tickets. A ticketing system, and you may have a ticketing system that you use for a variety of things, a ticketing system is a really useful way of making sure that the right people have access to the right information and you prioritize who is doing the work. We use tickets for everything. When I move countries, I cut a ticket. When we orchestrate an AppSec review, we use tickets. When there's an issue that security operations need to address, you cut a ticket. This means that you have a bunch of data that you can analyze to identify systemic issues and work out where you're going to prioritize your effort. We use tickets to understand, is there some more automation? Is there more technology that we can use that makes it easier for people to make good decisions, or ideally, not need to make decisions, but just get informed that they need to take some action? The second thing is the two-pizza team model. You may have heard this before. This comes from the fact that the ideal size of a group of people to make some decisions and own a particular piece of infrastructure or technology is the amount of humans that can be fed with two pizzas. Depending on where you are in the world, two pizzas is a very different concept. An American pizza and an Australian pizza and a European pizza could potentially be quite different. But the idea here is that we try and minimize the handoffs and minimize the social constraints. Conway's law is where you essentially ship your organizational structure. We want to make sure that the organization of humans that owns a particular piece of technology, not just the security decisions, but owns the thing they build, retains the autonomy to make decisions. And then when they need to interact and orchestrate through other teams, we use our ticketing system to make sure the right people are focused on the right things at the right time. So how does AWS security help our teams ship securely? Well, part of the AWS security organization is proactive security, and our mission is on the screen there. And basically what we're trying to do is focus on helping our teams ship securely. We want to get features in the hands of our customers. This means they can build awesome experiences for their customers. But if we don't make sure that we meet our security bar when we ship these features, that doesn't delight our customers. But equally, if we don't get the features in the hands of customers, that doesn't delight our customers either. So what we want to do is we want to empower our service teams to launch on schedule with the right customer experience with an appropriately high security bar. We are the guardians of security for AWS. But as we've gone through building over 200 services now, the number of builder teams and the number of humans in these builder teams is greater than the number of humans in our AppSec organization. This is a pretty common ratio that most organizations have. And what we found is that we can't scale this with humans. If you think of the normal life cycle where a team does a bunch of work, builds their application, gets to an AppSec review, then an AppSec engineer or a security engineer gives them guidance on things that they need to improve. That's quite hard to scale with humans. So we had to figure out a way of making this process move more quickly while maintaining our security bar. So what we've done is we've embedded security thinking into our builder teams. And the way we do this is with a program that we call Guardians. We take builders in the service teams and we train them on how to think about security. This means that they are essentially acting as a proxy for our AppSec function, and they can identify issues earlier. This starts with building a threat model, looking at the security guidance, identifying where they need to make architectural or design decisions to meet the security bar. This has resulted in some really, really great outcomes. It reduces the time through the application security process. It reduces the findings that we catch at the end of the process, so we're making it easier for teams to catch issues or potential issues, which is a lot easier to fix. As we know as builders, it's way easier to fix something in a dev environment when you've got a lot more autonomy and freedom rather than fixing something closer to production. So this Guardians program has been incredibly valuable for helping us move fast and stay secure for the services that we build and get in the hands of customers. The other thing here with the Guardians, apart from them understanding the specific security configuration for the individual services they build, it helps their teams know how to navigate the process of going through security reviews. So we've got the launching on schedule with an appropriately high security bar, identifying risks and findings earlier in the development cycle when it's easier and more cost-effective to fix. But it also reduces the confusion and variation in the review process. The Guardian in every service team knows that they work with their AppSec affinity engineer. They know where the guidance is. They know where the security expectations are. They know where the baseline security control information is. And so they know where to find the information that informs the decisions they made and are making continuously through the life cycle of the service. They know what to do when they get findings from our AppSec process. They know how the escalation works. They know who to talk to get assistance. All of our Guardians are in a Slack channel, so they can talk to other Guardians. They can build up the institutional memory from other people who've gone through these processes. And then we look at, what's the impact of this Guardians process? What's the program delivering? So we've trained over 2,000 software development engineers on how to think about security. This means that security is not just the job of people who have security in their job title. We've pushed a lot of that decision making earlier on in the process when it's a lot easier to reason about. We discovered that security reviews had almost 25% fewer medium and high severity findings discovered during an AppSec review, which was over 15,000 fewer findings in 2021. This means that we had to spend less effort remediating and mitigating these findings, and it was easier for the teams who were subject to these findings because they hadn't gone as far down the development path. Also, it was way quicker to complete a security review. Over 25% less time to complete a security review end to end, which yielded a saving of over 200,000 total days. And if you think about that across the 200 or so AWS services, that's a huge amount of time quicker to get features in the hands of customers with the right security bar, so we can delight our customers and customers can go and build excellent things for their customers. But shipping is just the beginning. You spend an amount of time in the software development lifecycle and you get features released and shipped. And ideally, if your service is successful, people are going to use this for a really long period of time. So you want to make sure that not only are you shipping securely, you're continuing to ship securely, but you're also operating securely. And because the job of security, as we think about it, is to help teams be secure in an ongoing fashion, we also built a couple of tools that help with the operation of services. So the first tool we built is a tool called Mechanic. Because we build the cloud on top of the cloud, but we also build the cloud on actual physical infrastructure as well, we've had to take a slightly different approach than customers building on top of AWS would build. They could build this entirely on AWS services. But Mechanic is a service that is provided to builder teams that allows them to run automated tasks on infrastructure, because we want to keep humans away from systems. We rely incredibly on automation, but sometimes in the troubleshooting process, an engineer needs to access a system. So Mechanic allows them to do that in a secure, auditable, and repeatable way. It also provides the ability of, with appropriate approvals and a change request, someone to access interactively a piece of infrastructure using short-term vendor credentials that expire after a period of time. And we can use the auditing from those types of scenarios to build the next set of runbooks. So the first time somebody has to troubleshoot something, they do it interactively. The next time we validate that the steps they take are the same. And ideally by the third time, we've automated it. So it's not an interactive process. Someone can just kick off an automated task, still using short-term vendor credentials, still appropriately approved. And this allows us to move incredibly quickly, but reduce the amount of access that anybody is likely to need, and making sure that in the event of somebody needing to do something, it's appropriately approved, audited, and is visible. Second tool we built is something we call software assurance service. So this is as an engineer or as a builder is building something and they add a particular package to a version set, we will tell them if that package needs to be of the later version. And what we're doing here is we're providing information on what a builder is going to need to do to get to the next level, to the next environment. So we're not blocking them in the headspace of doing the work, but we're saying that this particular package is going to need to be version 1.4, and you've included version 1.3. This allows them to finish their thought, validate that the problem they're solving is something that can be solved, and then make sure that they run an appropriate amount of regression testing with the later version before they get from dev to test, for example. This gives people the feedback in a programmatic way without having to wait for a security engineer to go and tell them to do something, gives them the autonomy in the decision-making process that fits within that 2P2T model, but it also allows us to have confidence that the right packages and the right dependencies are being managed across the breadth of builder teams in our organization. It also means that we're shifting left, but the appropriate amount left in a way that's useful for the builders and useful for the security organization. But with all of these things, that's upfront, that's the software development lifecycle, that's the operations of the service. We want to be able to measure how effectively we are doing these things. We want to make sure that we've got data to understand and inform the decisions that we make. Either do we need to provide additional training as part of our Guardians onboarding? Do we need to provide additional tooling? Is there more automated checks that we can deliver into our environment that make it easier for builders to reason about the security properties of the things they build? And we have some principles of how we measure success. Because if you remember from that quote up front, we're responsible for the security of AWS. So that's where AWS security fits in. So we want to report on metrics that relate to multiple teams, because we want to see across the breadth of our organization, where are the teams that are doing things well? Where are the teams where we need to provide additional guidance? And having metrics that apply to multiple teams across the breadth of our organization allows us to do that. We want to measure both outcomes, which is where the percentage reduction in findings detected at a security review is incredibly useful. But we also want to make sure that we're measuring the time to get to those outcomes, because we're trying to balance the time through an AppSec review to make sure that we're getting features in the hands of customers, but we're also making sure that we're catching the issues or potential issues so that we can maintain our security bar. So measuring both the outcome of the activities and the time it takes to go through the activities is incredibly important for us. And if we're going to provide metrics or graphs or information to our consumers, which in this case is the builders in our organization, we were prepared to absorb complexity on the side of AWS security to provide simpler metrics for our builder teams so it's easier for them to reason about what they have to do. An example would be, everybody can understand if a graph has gone from 0 to 1. It's a really obvious state change to observe. If I provide a bunch of information to a builder team and they need to look at one graph that's trended above a certain percentage and another graph that's trended below a certain percentage, and then based on the intersection of those make a decision, that's a bunch of cognitive load for the builders. So it's much better for us to absorb complexity and provide information to our builders in a way that is very, very easy for them to know if they have to do some work. And that also comes back to the ticketing approach. If we have a bunch of automated tooling and we detect something in a pipeline, If we can ticket somebody, and we have a very good way of knowing who the owner of a piece of infrastructure or who the owner of a piece of source code is, if we ticket them with, here is the finding, here is the context around this finding, and here is a link to the guidance of how to do this better, that reduces the mental load on the builders and it makes it easier for them to remediate findings. And that principle about both measuring and providing guidance for people remediating makes it easier for the humans in our organization to spend more of their time on the things that are more important. We also want to get feedback. Feedback is incredibly important to us as a broader AWS organization and also within AWS security. So we ask our customers for feedback. Our customers are the builders. We ask them what went well during the application security review, what went well in terms of the guidance, were they able to find all the information they needed. We ask the AppSec engineers through the same process. And this feedback between the AppSec engineers and the builders or the guardians representing the builders includes what was good about the threat model. Did it meet the right architecture level? Was it appropriate for the particular complexity of the system in question? This feedback helps the guardians improve their ability to articulate and describe their systems using the threat model, and it gives us feedback to make sure that we are providing the right training and tooling for the builders in our organization. This helps provide context for our metrics. So we've got the objective metrics around amount of findings, cycle time, but this anecdotal feedback about the human's experience in the process helps give context for that, and it helps us prioritize where we make improvements in our organizations and in our systems to help people get to their outcomes more quickly. So how can you get started today with this kind of approach? Starting off and starting to build a Guardians program is a great way of pushing that security knowledge that you have in your organization early on in the development cycle, pushing it to the builders and helping the people who are solving the problems of building systems in your environment to make good decisions about the security properties of what they build. Start off with automation. What are the things that you can programmatically provide feedback to people as they go through their software development lifecycle? What can you do when somebody checks in some code? What checks can you implement that allows you to detect and identify potentially undesirable code configurations? Maybe this is something that affects availability. Maybe this is a particular configuration that if you've seen previously is a higher likelihood of causing issues downstream. But in order to make sure that people can take advantage of that automation, you want to train your builders. So a Guardians program where you take software development engineers in service teams, take them through the training. We start off with threat modeling the right way for builders, which is some training that we've actually externalized, so you can go through this yourself. This is the founding building block of how to think about security. This threat model is a living document that goes through the life cycle of a service. But you also want to make sure that you're well communicating your security objectives. We have a security expectations program that starts off with the principles and then cascades down to the baseline controls that relate to particular architecture patterns. Training people on how to think about security includes training people on knowing where to find information about the systems they build. And then you want to measure success. You want to be able to give people guidance on when they've done well. Being a guardian as part of a service team helps people with potentially career development. It broadens their skills and gives them other domains to think about. You also want to be able to measure the effectiveness of your security program. Being able to demonstrate that you can get features in the hands of customers more quickly and that you're reducing the findings as you go through the process allows you to deliver to your leadership the effectiveness of your security program. And measuring things allows you to understand where you need to tweak it. So this kind of comes back to the question I asked at the start. And it's not really what is the job of security. It's what's the job of everyone. We are all builders. We are all contributing to the systems that we build for our customers. Security is not the job just of people with security in their job title. There are people with security in their job title, AWS security, for example, in our organization, and our job is to help all of the builders in our organization reason about security meet that security bar, and get features in the hands of our customers so they can build awesome things for their customers. So thank you very much for your time. Hope everybody goes forth and builds securely, scales security out across their entire organization, and empowers people to make good decisions about the properties of the systems that you build at scale. Thank you very much.